So Ian, today we're going to talk about the opportunities for resellers and partners, Microsoft partners, with regard to Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform and what we can see kind of coming up in the future, maybe. So I know we've got loads to say. We've always got loads to say, haven't we? And at times there's actually the stopping us that is the problem. But I think let's just have a look. We're talking about Biz Apps, aren't we? So what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're so right, Wendy. Actually, I think what we need to bear in mind is that Biz Apps are very much on Microsoft's map these days. There's three pillars. There's Microsoft 365, there's Azure, and there's Biz Apps.
Yeah.
Now, I remember going back to the Microsoft World Conference about 5 years ago when Satya Nadella had just taken over, and that was always his, or in those days before him, it was obviously Steve Ballmer. That keynote was really crucial. What got mentioned there meant it meant something to Microsoft. In those days, Dynamics CRM, as it was called then, barely got a mention. And then the next year, suddenly Satya's talking about it. The next year, it was, there's only three things in life: Office, Azure, and Dynamics. You go, whoa, where did that come from?
Wow. Yes.
We've got to bear in mind that Satya came from the business applications division. So he got it. It was his thing. It's his baby. He loved it. And now it is one of the three key pillars. It's not just Dynamics anymore, but it's Dynamics and the Power Platform. And that's, that in some ways throws some confusion and complexity into the agenda, but actually it also opens up a huge amount of opportunity for us and colleagues who work with in partners and resellers out there. So the answer is it's huge. It's triple-digit growth year on year in some of this stuff, and it is the latest billion-dollar enterprise in Microsoft. So it needs thinking about.
Yeah, it does. And I think, so I remember when I was first starting out in this world, and there's Dynamics 365, which at that point I think was called CRM Online. And then I realized there were other flavors of Dynamics 365, which actually weren't all built on the same platform. And that's when it began to get a little bit confusing for me. But I know that the introduction of CDS and the common data model essentially is beginning to open up those worlds and allow much more integration pieces between that. And then we've got the Power Platform coming along. So, and from my perspective, there's always a point where you have to say what when you're in the industry, it's the obvious, but it isn't always obvious from the outside. What do we mean, Power Platform?
Yeah, no, I think it's good to get this out on the table, really. If you think traditionally CRM, as it was then, is now really fundamentally sales within Dynamics. So, it's a function built by Microsoft that does sales, and it does it really, really well. Alongside that, the other things that they build and effectively give to us to sell are marketing, customer service, project service, field service, finance, operations, and those are kind of Microsoft built products that we can literally go and buy the license for, deploy, configure, customize, and get on with.
Yeah.
But then because it's sitting on this common data model, as you and I call it, and we've had a couple of new names for that recently.
I know. I think the latest is Dataverse, isn't it?
Dataverse, right. Dataflex was an interesting one because I worked with Dataflex when I was working with the Ministry of Defence. I mean, literally 30 odd years ago.
Let's not give away how old we are, Ian. Let's not.
No. I was very time, clearly you could barely spell. Anyway, but we have a new name for it now. But what does that mean? What it means is that all these applications that Microsoft build sit on this common data model, and the Power Platform, the Power Apps that we can build also can sit on that same platform as well. In fact, they do. So you don't have to. If you want to build an application these days, you can spin up the Power Platform and it will have accounts in it. It will have contacts in it. It will know what an address looks like. And there's a load of stuff you don't have to build. It literally is there for you the moment you spin that up. But if you want to create something specific to your requirement, you can actually create that within that same database, and it gets all the same security and integrity built into it. You can build all the relationships you need, and then you can build your own application on that, or you can link it into one of those I've already mentioned. So
Yeah.
huge opportunities, but that also means therefore you can use things like Power BI to give you visualization reports on it, or Power Automate flows to do workflows across anything you build, anything Microsoft gives us, but also 300 plus these days, other third-party applications out there that somebody's already built a connector straight into. So,
Gosh,
you know,
yeah.
wow.
So I think I always, so one of my part of my kind of sales line, I think about this was always Dynamics 365 is a platform for growth. And I guess now we can say the Power Platform is a platform for business growth. It's scalable, it's flexible, you turn subscriptions on and off, you know, and you can have things tailored and customized, particularly along to bring in your own sales processes. But you also have the advantage of being able to use the best practice business processes that are already kind of included, so gently nudge and guide you along the ways of gathering all that information that you might not get if you start thinking about this from an organic point of view. Let's put it like that. We all know businesses go through an organic process of growth until somebody at the helm says, hang on, we're going to go over there. And I think, you know, we can, I think this business platform for growth can enable when you want to take that helm and when you need to make sure you can hit certain targets and get to the direction you want to go. So I guess
I think your point there really is really powerful, because, you know, as we tend to focus on the SMB arena, but which people originally thought we were mad to do, because they said, well, it's an enterprise product. You go, no, yeah, okay, you might have built it for an enterprise level organization, but in actual fact, as long as we demystify it, and if need be, focus it down slightly, it's absolutely appropriate for SMB. And also the pricing these days makes it accessible to SMBs. So, but it's interesting when you talk to some SMBs that they're at that point of inflection. There's some reason why they've called us in. Now, I think we'll talk about COVID in a minute. That's a whole different discussion around that digital transformation journey. But usually it's something that, you know, the business is really starting to take off, or they've just introduced a new product line or something, or they bought somebody out. There's a reason why somebody sits back and goes, do you know what? Maybe we should do this differently, because we're tripping over each other. We're losing data. We don't know where our next opportunity is coming from. We're losing lead. There's something like that going on. And very often when you have that discussion with somebody like that, they say, do you know what? Tell us what the best practice is. We'll give it a good think about. If it fits with us, why wouldn't we pick that up? Now, we're not saying that they have to do that, but these platforms that Microsoft give us to tell, they actually have got millions and millions of hours of best practice built into them. So it's really worth a thought. Then it's just, you know, that gives you 80% almost on the Pareto, and then the 20%, which is about that individual or that individual organization that's specific to them. So it's well worth thinking about. But hey, what about COVID then, Wendy? How's that impacted on us?
Well, yeah, dramatically, actually. I think for most people, well, everybody really has been affected by this, both personally and commercially and in a business sense. I mean, for us, we shut the office up in March and we haven't been back in since. And since that time, we've actually carried on with business and work, but it has changed the way we've worked. And I think potentially it's changed it for the better, actually, because in that stand, how were we going to do this thing now? We've had to make some different decisions that we would have done maybe than if we were still in the building. So I think from that perspective, I think we both see in the kind of discussions that we're having with partners at the moment that COVID has really triggered a whole avalanche of businesses and industries perhaps that have been a bit behind the beat in terms of digital transformation, actually really can see the value and wanting to get on that journey now. So I think it's made a huge difference, and it will continue to. That will reverberate over the next 10 years potentially.
But I think it's why it's really important to the partners and resellers that we work with, because, you know, they were getting phone calls from customers who perhaps not quite got round to that digital transformation agenda thing yet.
Yes.
and suddenly had to have it in place by Monday morning.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's that whole Microsoft 365 migration, laptops for everybody, working a dispersed workforce could be anywhere. Where's the phone system gone all of a sudden? Well, get that up in the cloud, all that kind of stuff. Get the
Yes.
data up in the cloud. It just had to suddenly digital transformation wasn't a nice to have, wasn't a really an aspiring project to engage with. It was survival. And we've seen a lot of that where businesses just had to get on the bus literally in hours. Great, okay. But I think what we've also seen is that when people have done that, they go, well, hang on a minute, why stop? Why stop with just doing the mailbox and the data and third-party apps and all that kind of stuff? We've now also seen the benefit of the digital transformation. So let's do the whole bit.
Yes.
And that is where we come in, because we're very much on the right-hand edge, I think, of the digital transformation journey for most customers.
Absolutely.
So I think for our resellers and partner colleagues, it's about don't ignore it. Absolutely don't ignore it, because it's an opportunity sitting on the table to go, well, look, all we've got to do is keep this journey going now, and we can bring in some amazing business applications in for you that can really make a huge impact and build on what you've already invested on with some of your migrations so far. And we're seeing a load of that, aren't we, at the moment?
I think so. And I think we're seeing it in traditional business, maybe parts of business that have been a little bit behind the beat in terms of digital transformation. So I'm thinking particularly around asset management and HR, that there are and I think we'll see more of that actually in the future. So I think that's what's coming towards us, more functionally specific solutions built on the Power Platform, such as a complete HR experience, digital HR experience, from recruitment right the way through to succession planning, for example. And then I think the other parts we'll see is around things like asset management, where we'll see a replacement for all those forms, all those compliance forms, reflected in use of mobile apps on mobile phones, and licensed by something like a Power App, which brings down cost of entry enormously. But I think in the future we'll also see more vertical solutions as well, and I think we're seeing that in AppSource already, but they will be around specific industries that haven't, up until now, they haven't done an awful lot in that marketplace. So I would say some things like insurance, for example.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. I think it's interesting how, as you know, we've got an asset management tool, and that was brought to us by a customer exactly around this whole thing around no longer having a centralized office and what have you, and yet compliancy is still a league. There's a whole load of legal issues around compliancy, which got to be managed by people who aren't even sitting in the same venue anymore.
Yeah,
the same room, and then, but also then alongside that, it's not just the kind of the big stick issue. The compliance is about, well, in actual fact, that let's manage these assets in a more constructive way, so we get more length out of them. We retire them at the right time, and all that kind of good stuff. So there's a huge amount of cost savings to be had as well. So I think, and the vertical piece about like HR, exactly. Again, enabling individuals to interact with the HR platform for even hourly time reporting on an app, for example, which can be important to some people when they're working remotely. So, particularly professional services people who are literally recording time by the minute, can all be done now and reported back. The vertical one, I think, is interesting. Yeah, I think there's some very specific verticals that we can develop and deploy, again, using Power Apps particularly, which are very easy, much easier these days to spin up and make happen in a dispersed workforce. So yeah, lots of exciting opportunities for our partners to talk to us about.
Yeah, I think we've probably gone way over our time.
My surprise.
I know. So I think we'll have to call this a wrap now, but we're planning to do this more often, aren't we? To talk to our partners directly, talk to those people in the reseller marketplace, just to make sure that they're on board with all the changes that are coming, and hopefully some industry insights and some banter around what we can see coming. I think, and more name changes probably. No, we won't mention that.
Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah, but please do get in touch if there's any of this interests you. Then give us a call.